Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden Podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the weekending show team from Lionheart Radio. It's great to be back. In this episode, Tom Pattinson is propagating, and his guide can help you to make plants for free and ooph up your borders and veg beds. Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Peel Tower project is catching up on the heritage side of conservation. Tom Cadwallender from the British Trust for Ornithology is on a road trip to his Scottish birding roots and saving the osprey. Plus some top tips for the garden from Tom P. All coming up on the Weekending Show. Come on to the lighthouse, take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline. Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline. Take my hand and come with me, darling, down to the shoreline. If you've ever thought of boosting your borders and vegetable beds, propagation can make a huge difference, and it can help your gardening budget stretch just a wee bit further. So let's give out our hearty welcome back to Tom Pattinson.
We gardeners occasionally complain about the price of plants. You see a perennial in a pot at the garden centre and think, oh, I'm not going to pay that much for a single plant in a pot, for goodness sake. But hold on, think how long that plant is going to last. And the epitome for me is buying an apple tree or a pear tree. It may look expensive at the time, but when you think of how many years it's going to last, for goodness sake, much longer than I, for sure, you think. So it's worth buying, of course. And suddenly you get the price into perspective. But I must confess that quite a few of the herbaceous perennials, etc., that I see in the market, they are pretty expensive, and I think I can do better than that. So I resort to propagation. And propagation comes in two strands for me. One is the clonal propagation, sometimes called asexual propagation or vegetative propagation, because you're taking a piece from a plant and it carries all the genetic material that plant has. It's a clone, in other words. You root it if it hasn't already got roots, and it's a bargain. A plant for free, dividing your herbaceous perennials up. If you do that, it can be a stem cutting, it can be a root cutting, it can be a leaf cutting, it may even be a layer, a plant layered from, say I do it with, I've got a thornless blackberry bramble in the garden, and I just, one shoot near the ground, I put a brick over near the tip, and it roots, and I've got a new plant. I'm just got to be patient until it roots. Lilac, syringa plant. It keeps on sending. I've got a white one in the garden, double white, Madame Lemoyne, and it sends up shoots every year. Amazing. I just take a piece off, dig down, root section at the bottom, stem at the top. I've got a new plant. Just sever it from the parent. It grows on. Ideal. Vegetative propagation, true to form, replicates the parent. Seed sown's another method. Seed saving your own seed. But that's not as straightforward. Saving the seed is, but the result is not always so. I always, first and foremost, save the seeds of species plants. And let me explain species plants. It's when you're looking to recognise whether the plant is a species or not, look at its name, it will have two Latin names, two Latin words. And the first word is the name of the plant, say I have a woad plant, the one the ancient Britons used to get the dye from, blue dye, and put on their faces. I have a woad plant, and its Latin name is Isotis tinctoria. First word tells you what the plant is. The second one tells me it's a species, because it doesn't have any of those single quotation marks above it. And the second word, tinctoria, has a lowercase t, not a capital T. So that's a simple way of finding out whether it's a species or not. Recently, I've been sieving some seed of teasel, Dipsarchus phelonum. You can guess the phelonum, descriptive word, second word, has a small f. I've also been saving some wallflowers, Erysimum kierai. Kierai has a small c. Foxglove, Digitalis purpurea, small p for the purpurea. Poppy, Papaver somnifera, small s for the poppy. Easy to recognise species. They reproduce true to form. So go for species first and foremost if you're saving seeds. If you buy an F1 hybrid in a packet, this is back to buying, the first generation or first generation of the seeds there will give you exactly what it says on the packet, because the breeders have chosen 2 strong breeding lines for plants, and they know which are the dominant genes in those plants, and the F1 hybrid will give you just what it says in the packet. If you save the seeds of that plant and have F2 hybrids, or second generation hybrids, they will give you a mixture. So I'm not saying it's not worthwhile sowing F2 hybrids, but if you do, be prepared for surprises in colour, size, etc.
Tom Cadwallender from the British Trust for Ornithology has been back to his birding roots in Scotland and looking at a momentous time in his life when plans to save the osprey developed, and at how reproduction programmes really pay dividends. Welcome back, Tom.
Hello, Carl. It's great to be back. What a summer. Great stuff. I've just taken an excursion down to the Aln Estuary on this quiet sunny evening. It's quite a contrast to the last few days where we've had sort of strong winds and torrential rain. But I just wanted to mention the fact that this past week I've been guest speaker at a wildlife hotel in Speyside in Scotland. And what a very pleasant stay I've had as well. Very plush, very comfortable. And in return for that, I've had to give a couple of lectures, which, as you'll realise, it was quite a hardship for me. Not really. And then I had to spend some time with guests. Again, not really a hardship. And that was my work for the week. But going into Speyside gave me the chance to kind of visit one or two interesting and kind of familiar places for me from the past. Findhorn Bay, for example, great coastal landscapes, great coastal birds. And under the Black Isle, with all its kind of wonderful geese and ducks and all sorts of things. And into Strasdurn, looking for birds of prey. It was pretty special, actually, the whole week. But what sort of sunk in, though, was I visited Lochgarten, the RSPB reserve there in the Abernethy Forest. I first went there in 1976 when I was as a volunteer to the RSPB's Operation Osprey programme. And at that point, there was only one pair of ospreys breeding in the whole of the British Isles. And this was really quite important, quite fundamental. They used to breed quite regularly in the whole of the British Isles, but over years it became extinct because of persecution and egg collecting at the finish, and so they went extinct in the back end of the 19th century, which is a darn shame. But anyway, the start of the colonisation were birds which were flying north in the spring from the winter quarters in Africa to the breeding areas in in Scandinavia, and one or two of them stayed over in the Scottish Highlands, and eventually the pair kind of got together and they bred, and it was absolutely fantastic. And this was my first experience as a kind of real callow and shallow youth of nature conservation in action, and it actually shaped the rest of my life, really. And I got a chance to speak to a lot of people, explain the situation about kind of the conservation of these birds, and just sharing the wonder and the spectacle and the awe of these wonderful birds. Now, from those days, and 40 odd years ago, you sort of you rapidly move forward into the present day, and you look at even Northumberland. We've got 6 or 7 pairs actually breeding in the county. And Kielder Water is the centre of the universe when it comes to ospreys, of course. That's where they all are, but plenty of fish there and plenty of food for them, and nests in the forest, nesting sites in the forest. It works really well for them, and there's been a great success of them as a breeding bird. Absolutely wonderful. And when we left Speyside and we were driving south through Scotland, and we got across the border into Northumberland, and that was on Sunday. And I got a message shortly after we got over the border to say there'd been a white-tailed eagle reported on the causeway of Holy Island. Now, white-tailed eagles are another species which enjoys feeding on fish, and so yes, quite excitement. And another species which had been made extinct through persecution, and there's been this great programme of reintroduction, and they're in several places now. And the birds on Mull have become really quite successful, and we see them very easily there, so it's great. But anyway, I got down to see this bird on the causeway, and it was colour marked, and it had a satellite transmitter on it. And it turns out that this bird had been part of the Isle of Wight release programme, and it was released about 2 years ago. And this past summer, it's been spending most of its time at Tyningham in the borders, with occasional excursions into Northumberland and Holy Island in particular. So that was great. And I'd never seen a white-tailed eagle in Northumberland. But the fact there was such a great sort of conservation sort of story, the fact that both osprey and white-tailed eagle, both driven to the breeding extinction in the UK, now have re-established themselves, sometimes, with assistance. And it brings into sharp focus the idea of conservation in action and how it works and how important it is. And I just felt, there was just really quite something inside there. Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, the fact that it was that first experience at Loch Garten in 1976 really shaped the rest of my life in terms of my appreciation of birds, my appreciation of conservation. And it just guided me through, and I've had an amazing time. But it was wonderful. Actually, what a thrill. Even now, I'm still sort of buzzing. It's wonderful, absolutely terrific. There you are. My experiences from the past week, and it's been a highlight of the summer, to be perfectly honest. Great stuff.
Seeds are an essential part of the ecosystem of gardens and life. Tom Pattinson has been collecting them, and he has some sage advice on how to store them.
Once you've collected your seeds together, you need to be thinking about storage. And basically for storage, you need to put them in an environment that has a low humidity and a regular temperature, a cool, dry surrounding. Before that, they need to be cleaned, of course. Clean the seeds off, make sure they're dry, and then you can seal them either in... I use some round film capsules, the containers for film capsules from the days when I used to have a single lens reflex camera. Lovely, and they're sealed completely once you put the lid on those, just small, label them, etc. Failing that, I put them in an envelope, but not a paper envelope that's got flaps at the side open, one that seals all the way along. And then they go into that dry, cool environment. When they go in there, don't put them in a tin box, for goodness sake. probably a wooden box is best. We have a wooden box which I put them in. There's no moisture attracted by the metal. Ideal wooden box, and possibly certainly don't put them in a polythene bag because that's going to help them to rot. And do you know those the foil, the foil, silver foil paper that comes with bars of chocolates and things? Actually, if you use some of those to wrap them in, then into an envelope, that keeps them in a dry condition also. So once they're in there, you're thinking about viability. You have to. Are they going to be ready for sowing? How am I going to get 100% germination or near 100% germination a year afterwards? And, there are charts we see occasionally of the viability of different seeds. And we read items. For example, seeds from last year I reckon they should last for about 2 or 3 years if I keep them in a reasonable state. That's the vegetable seeds and the flower seeds. The seed packet has something on that says sow before, and they're generally very cautious in they give you probably 2 years hence. So that suggests that a good germination would be there if you tried sowing them 2 years hence, but not beyond that. Generally, it's a bit on the narrow side that many of the common or garden vegetables I grow and save seeds of, and flowers especially, I reckon they're up to 4 to 5 years with good storage. They would last. But I wouldn't expect them to do anything like that recorded Arctic lupin, 10,000-year-old, successfully extracted from permafrost and in 1966 supposedly germinated. I would like to have seen it just to qualify that. And I know that in on the Roman wall over at the far end of our county, Northumberland, during excavations, they found chickweed, that common chickweed in the Valham ditch, and buttercup was found at the Bird Oswald Roman fort, and similar things found at Vindelander Roman fort, where beautiful the air is excluded completely, and in the lower reaches of some of the trenches they dig there. Whether they were tried for germination or I don't know, but for goodness sake, poppy seeds will last for ages. And most of the vegetables, cabbage seed, 10, 20 years, cabbage seed found in a drawer in a dry area, no fluctuation, great fluctuation of temperature, and trying to germinate them, not 100% germination, but certainly a good, decent germination. Herbaceous plants tend to be a bit shorter than the veggies, and I save vegetables regularly, quite a few, the runner bean, tomato, cucumber, courgettes when they turn into marrows, garden peas, beans. All of these are fairly easily stored, and they reproduce next year fairly true to form, because the breeders who churn them out in the catalogues every year, they have taken 2 strong inbreeding lines, inbreeding lines for those individual plants. This is really thirsty work. I think I'm going to take a break for a cup of tea.
This is the Nature Garden Podcast with Carl Steinson, Tom Pattinson, Tom Cadwallender and Steve Lowe.
I hear you calling on each winter breeze. I feel you pushing me on. Wind blows, I can't find which way to go. You guide me in this newfound form. I can hear you when I sing. You take me, push me through storms of old. You help me to find these treasures of gold. Sail on, you help me sail on. Sail on, you help me sail on. You help me. You help me. Your wind blows among these old torn, weathered lines, but I know we're sailing just fine. Sail on, you help me sail on. Sail on, you help me sail on. Sail on, can you help me sail on? Sail on, can you help me sail on? Sail on, you help me sail on. You help me sail on. You help me sail on.
Sail On by Jason Vare, also known as Shaggy, a great friend of the show. And congratulations, Jason, on a brilliant new album. It's called Sensors, and it's available now. Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Peel Tower Project and Northumberland Rivers Trust is looking at heritage at risk this week and the conservation of buildings with Alan Bull from Historic England. They're checking out the progress of restoration work at the Peel Tower.
Well, we're here at Cresswell today with Alan Bull from Historic England. Hi, Alan.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great. What are you doing here today?
Well, we've got a big project within Historic England called Heritage at Risk, which encompasses about 250,000 listed buildings which are in various states of repair. Some are just coming onto the register, some are just coming off the register, and we're here today because Cresswell has got this amazing Peel Tower which has just come off the Heritage at Risk register, which we're delighted about. So I'm here just to document the work that's been done, meet a few of the people who've done the work, and do a few portraits so we can use the work to try and get other owners of properties to do similar good work to their structures.
Which is fantastic news, obviously, for us here at Cresswell, because most of the work's been done through volunteer activity. It's taken a long time, and I think, there's a few lessons to be learnt there. But it's brilliant because it looks as if this site and this particular project is being showcased which again, big pat on the back for the people who've done it, like Barry Mead, etc. So that's great, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. And Historic England are using this as a real exemplar as to how to proceed with projects like this.
Well, I wish we'd known, because we could have put our clover on, proper clover, and dressed up for the occasion today. But no. It's been really good. Firstly, to have you here, and we're only just started yet. So you've been taking drone footage. What other sort of types of image are you looking to get?
Well, today we'll be mainly getting work that's been conservation work mixed in with original stonework, so we can see the change that's been made.
Yeah.
And it was a real state here with buddleia growing through the floors, no roof, and it's now a tremendous effort now. So I'm just documenting how that work has gone ahead and how fantastic it looks.
Well, it's been really popular. I think I was saying to you that we've had over 4,000 visits already, and we've only been open a few days, And even when we opened the door today, we had people trying to get in, didn't we? So I felt really guilty saying to them, "No, you can't come in." But no, it's great. And you've been doing other properties in the area as well, I believe.
Yes, as part of the Heritage at Risk project, I've been over in Weatherall near Carlisle doing the Cornbridge flour mill, which is in a real state. The roof had gone, and that's been funded from various sources, and the roof's now back on. All the grinding gear is back in, and the water wheel's working.
Oh, great!
And there's an archaeologist that's learned how to use all the engineering of the wheels.
Yeah.
She's now milling flour 3 days a week there.
Fantastic!
And there's a baker on site, so it's all self-contained. Water wheel, flour grounding, and making bread. And it's a total success. So
well, we have something similar up here at Heatherslow, which is in Northumberland, and I think that's really, really good way of seeing these things back in use, isn't it?
It's tremendous.
Yeah, and Dalrymple Hall, I think you'd been
Dalrymple Hall, yes, been doing some work there. On one of the bastions, Bastion 4, which is the southwest bastion, that was all falling down in a real state, and it's had a lot of work done, and is now back in place. So so these things aren't always well-known sites, but they're important historically, and it's right that we look after them for future generations. Yeah,
I mean, we do have one very close to us here, the old stable block from the Cresswell Hall, which sadly is in a similar position. It's not in good nick. And it's there's a lot of people want to see it improved. It's just trying to find a way to encourage the owner of it to do it, because it's obviously costly to do these things. But it's great that it's been acknowledged, and I'm looking forward to seeing the end result of this. So I just want to say thank you very much, and I sprung this interview on you as well, and you've been absolutely great. So thanks very much.
Keep up the good work. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Then cheers.
Here's Tom with some things to be getting on with in the garden.
And so it's jobs for the week time. Well, as I mentioned previously, I'm saving seeds at the moment, and I have a runner bean, St. George, which has white flowers and red flowers, which is very attractive even before the beans appear. It's got some really long runners on. They've been delicious this year, yet again, from last year's saved seeds. So I leave the runner beans on the plant until, pick one or two of which large beans in. I leave them on the plant until they dry off and shrivel. Then I take them off, and those beautiful beans come out and store them. I'm also storing tomato seed. Aviditas I've grown this year. That's Aviditas. It's a cherry type tomato. It was grafted, this one, but I'm going to experiment and save some of the seed because it has such huge trusses. Just break any tomato that's over ripened open. I use a plant label with a pointed end, and I flick them out quite carefully onto a double sheet of paper kitchen roll, and they dry off on there on the winter still overnight, and then I leave them inside a new piece of kitchen roll and then put them in storage, and it works for me every year. I'm looking at the soft fruits. I've harvested all the red currants, black currants, and of course the gooseberries, and they could be pruned now, but especially the blackcurrant and the gooseberry, but there are a lot of leaves on the plant, so I prefer to wait until November period, late November, when all the leaves are gone. You get a good view of the plant and you know how much of the old wood to cut out. I'm looking at the raspberry canes as well. They can be done now. That's this coming week. The main crop raspberries have finished fruiting. I'll chop out all of the canes that have borne fruit, and this clears sort of space within the plants themselves, and you can see the pale coloured young strong shoots coming up. They've grown just about as tall as the existing that have just borne fruit, and they're tied in for next year. The birds are starting to get at the apples and the wasps and the plums. They're picking on both of those at the moment. So I've started to pick the first of the ripening apples. That's Discovery, the beautiful red one. Very tasty. It's ripened now. And of course, James Greaves is next up. So it needs covering as well. I've covered them both, but I'm keeping an eye on them day after day. I'm picking them off as they come away in my hand. I'm not forcing them. Just put your hand on the apple, give it a little downward flick, and if it comes away in your hand, it's ripe. Take it. I'm thinking about the potatoes as well. I've got quite a few still in the soil. Now, if you leave them in too long and it gets a bit wet, unfortunately, the slugs get at them. There's a particular slug called the keeled slug, because one end of it looks like the keel of a boat, and it burrows into the one potato and the rest are spoiled if that escapes your view and goes into storage. So I'm lifting all the potatoes up, drying them off, and storing them out of sight, away from the light, in the garage. I've been looking at the catmint. The bees have stopped going for it now. Most of the flowers have faded, and I'm taking those stems that have flowered off the catmint, but there are some young ones coming up about 30 centimetres tall. Given a bit of clear weather with some sunshine, a bit of warmth, they will flower as well. So it's a second helping for the bees if they do so. It's worth taking a chance with that, cutting down some of the catmint but leaving the young shoots. Lavender, never cut into the dead wood, the old wood, because the plant might end up dead. All I'm doing with the lavender, it's finished flowering, is cutting back the flowers, cut the flower stalks off they've spent now, and then maybe a little bit into the young growth from this year, but otherwise just leave it. Looking at the herbaceous borders as well, mixed borders, there's quite a lot. There's been a lot of herbaceous growth this summer, and they've stopped flowering now, some of them, and there are others in the border, the sedum spectabile, which will be flowering shortly, attracting bees, butterflies, and of course the autumn crocuses. They need some space, so I need to cut back some of that luxurious growth, which has done its flowering bit, and tidied up a wee bit as well. I'm calling time on the greenhouse tomatoes, taking the whole crop out now. There were just some that were starting to get a little bit mould, the leaves, so those leaves that remained. So I've taken the crop out. They're in a box in the open air, in the open part of the house, a spare room, and they're ripening as they go, even the green ones. Next thing, I'll be bringing the chrysanthemums, which are in pots outdoors, into the greenhouse, so I can see the early ones flower, and then the later ones will follow them. Whatever you're doing this coming week, enjoy your gardening.
You've been listening to gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallender from the British Trust for Ornithology, and Steve Lowe from the Northumberland Rivers Trust and Cresswell Peel Tower Project. I'm Carl Steinson, and don't forget, we'll be back in a couple of weeks, but you can listen back to all the previous reports we've done, well, since lockdown actually, on the Nature Garden podcast. In the meantime, enjoy your gardening and time outdoors with nature. Bye for now.